Right. Let me lower this. Okay, comrades, we started. Well, welcome to Radical Books and Politics. It is a huge honor for me to have these two amazing podcasters, Kuya David and Daniel Hees, or the Chubby Fat God, and they're going to talk about their ideas about poetry and politics and the state of poetry in America. But maybe not more importantly, I'm just a huge fucking fan of Pen Clique, so I hope you guys talk about that. But before we start, yeah, totally, man, I love it. I stalked your page today, by the way. So before we begin, pronouns, to talk about pronouns, I go by Jesus, she, her. Daniel Brooks, who's also co-hosting. Thank you, my brother. What do you go by?
He, him.
And my awesome guests?
He, him.
Daniel Hees. Yeah, same. He, him. Het boys in the building.
Dig it. So could you please tell our viewers about yourselves?
Oh, should we do the intro? Should I do the intro?
Yeah, do it. Hit him, Dave.
Hey, I said, yo, you are now rocking with Kuya David, the Pen Clique Prime Minister, out here with my brother Daniel Hees, the Chubby Fat God. And this is the Pen Clique, a poetry podcast where we invite poets on our platform to perform their art, share their stories, and speak their truths. You can follow us on YouTube and on Instagram, PENCLIQUE, the most poppin' poetry podcast in the galaxy, the most poppin' poetry platform on the internet, because you know poetry dropping when the pen clicks and poets get it poppin' with the Pen Clique.
Damn, bro, that was legit.
The Pen Clique is in the building.
I know, right? Pros, real pros. Were you making the hand jerking signs or Daniel Hees?
No, that's the click. That's the click. But we would do that too, bro. We get lit. We do all those signs.
The whole time she was like, wait a minute.
I know, right? Threw me. I'm like, whoa. We're not the kind of show, man. Not the kind of show. So, where did the idea of Pen Clique come from? How did that come together?
Oh, wow. It's a long origin story. We've told like a billion times. But essentially, David was testing and developing this. So what we do, which is industry standard, high polish, high quality poetry content. That's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to do what Complex does for poets. You know what I'm saying? So that I was a producer. I was a poet. I was slamming. I was just in the scene, just kind of doing my thing. I come from a Mike and Dim Lights and that school of poets. So God bless Best Kept and JB, 20 years strong, Mike and Dim Lights. And just doing my thing as a poet. But as a producer, I worked in industry as an audio engineer, and I've done everything from like theater to audio, like film, music, things like that. And I wanted to bring some of those skills into poetry. So my initial thought was a poetry podcast. I've been podcasting for like 10, 11 years now. So I've been doing it a long time. I've been done a lot of like radio programming and segment development. And those skills I wanted to bring to poetry. Then coming Kuya David, I get an opportunity through Charles Williams, who runs he started Freedom of Speech.
Nice.
But he's a wonderful poet in the LA area, see Will. He linked me up with David because David hit him for poets to do what David was developing, which was also kind of in that vein of let's take some of my production skills and bring that into poetry. So he was developing something called the Poetry Clash. So I go to David's house and meet him to do this event called the Poetry Clash. And then David, you want to take it from there, bro?
Oh yeah, but real quick, I'm going to speak to the chat right quick. Shout out Edmund Zambrano, who shouted out Mike and Dim Lights. So gang. We also got Olas HWC. Shout out to you, my guy. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you, Olas. Thank you, David. I can't do this. Thank you. I appreciate that, man.
Oh yeah, so like Mr. Daniel Hees was saying, Pen Clique. Like, so I come from an entertainment advertising background. I'm an art director and a designer, and I build ads for social media ads, a lot of digital ads. I used to do a little bit of print for film and TV, and some music, and all digital outlets of entertainment, so gaming as well. And throughout my poetry career, I was taking note that there aren't a lot of people with my exact skill set. And I always wondered, when the Great Deaf Poetry Jam was on cable and then they cut off, nobody was really there to pick up the torch. There have been folks that have done their own amazing things, such as the Verses and Flow series, as well as the work that Button has done, the work that Deaf Poetry has done. But at the same time, to the grand scale that Deaf Poetry Jam did it, like nobody really went that route of commercial polish and design polish.
Right.
So with that being said, I kind of been thinking about, all right, what if, right? What if we took someone who knows how to design and advertise within the marketing paradigm of entertainment advertising and apply that to poetry? Like, could that possibly, uplift the entire poetry platform by treating it as an entertainment genre instead of just leaving it isolated in its own scene? Like, let's treat it through all these other means. And that's what PenClick is. It's a big experiment. We're still figuring out, like we've been, Mr. Daniel Hees, we've been going at it for like what, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? I forget now, but
Yeah,
we've
and we spent a lot of
experimented
time
so
cooking
much.
too. We spent
I
a year
think
just
brothers-
talking about all this.
I think when I notice this, how beautifully put together your shows are. I mean, everything from the intro to the flow to the kind of guests you have, it really is an amazing show. I mean, you guys are my heroes, and I know we got to come into our own YouTube voice or my YouTube voice because my comrade here is just for the day. But I love it. I love how you guys interact with one another. It really is beautiful, and I know you guys put a lot of time and effort into it. Totally, you can tell, and it makes me mad when you get people to dislike, and I'm like, bitch, I will cut you if I find out who you are. How fucking dare you dislike this rad show? Because it's so awesome. I mean, I don't get that.
And we love the haters on the real. Like, it's all love at PenClick. It is what it is, you know what I'm saying? But that is the key, right? Work. We saw the potential for, like David said, what if? Can we try all of these other tactics that work for? Now we see with the internet and YouTube, you can make content about anything.
Oh, sure.
And make money and pop and all of that. So why not poetry? And the missing piece to that is resources, right? There isn't a lot of people that have these media skills in poetry, and there certainly aren't a lot of opportunity for poets to fund these projects.
Definitely.
So we both have these skill sets, right? The development and production side of it and all of that, audio and all of that, and David with his marketing and branding and design skills, they come together where it's like this hasn't been done yet. We're realizing that this hasn't been done yet, and we want to show not only poets that this could be done, but we want to show the marketplace that this could be done. We want to show potential investors that this could be done, because in the entertainment industry, you have to be undeniable to get that bag. So we're trying to create a model for poetry that's so undeniable that Coca-Cola is going to give us $1 million to do an event. We want to pay poets real money, and this is the avenue to that.
So this kind of ties into my next question, because Deanna Brooks and I and other people who are poets have been talking about why poetry is so undervalued in America. And I can tell you horror stories. I remember one time I was working for an entomologist. He was an old, tall, white dude, and I was just a young Chicana, undergrad. And I told him I was a poet, and he ranted for 5 minutes, like, poets are the scourge of the planet, and you leech off of Social Security, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? But it was so visceral, Sure. But I think about, in contrast, broke adult in Latin America, I think about Neruda, I think about poets in Ireland and Algeria who are political and so beloved. And I wonder if you can talk a little more. Why, first of all, why do you think that is, right? But secondly, what else can we do to elevate poetry in America? It doesn't even have to be political. Let's do beautiful pastoral poetry. I don't care. But what do we have to do to elevate it to the way that it is esteemed in other parts of the world? There is a path.
Yeah. Let me cook real quick. All right. So in my opinion, a big part of it is just paradigm shifting. So Dan and I were talking earlier about how the Harlem Renaissance was probably the last, American arts movement where poetry was really revered like that, right? It's oh, Raisin in the Sun, I'm gonna catch that next week. Yo, what's good? Maya Angelou, yo, you saw her on TV last night? Yo, she's popping. But a big part of it is, as America is one of the number one exporters of music and art and culture. we have exported hip hop across the world, and that has created seeds right there. But when it comes to poetry, we're not the ones that produce that, off rip. Like other countries have had much farther legacies of poetry, and here, because poetry is not necessarily new, but so limited in what's been done throughout history, because America's a fairly new country-ish in the grand scheme of things, that the paradigm of what a poet is so fast to change. I mean, when you look up, poets, scenes of poetry portrayed in film and TV, you always have that one poet that talks like this. I mean, you've seen it. You've seen it in what is that movie? 22 Jump Street, where Jonah Hill was faking poetry. You see it in rom-coms. You see it on TV. It's just like, you need that douchebag that thinks they know better because they're good with words. But but what we're trying to do is that there are a lot of people who enjoy poetry for what it is. Like, they enjoy the scene, they enjoy the culture. Slam community is a very real thing, and it's full of young people who can influence the culture in that way. And the way that they interact with the world is significantly different from how poets interact with the world in the 80s and 90s. So we have internet, we have social media. So the question is, how do we lubricate poetry content to people through these newer platforms at the way that people want to receive their content? So if poetry was traditionally all live events and literary, but then everybody's on Snap, on Instagram, on Discord, or on Twitch, then how do you package poetry to speak to those rooms? Because you don't speak to your parents the way you speak to your best friend. You don't speak to your best friend the way you speak to your kids. You tailor your message to the room and to the person that you speak to. So when it comes to Twitch, when it comes to Twitter, when it comes to Instagram, Pen Clique is trying to figure out through our production means, what is the best way that poetry can be received on these platforms.
Well, would you say your target audience is more tech savvy lovers of poetry, or is it broader, like anybody who appreciates poetry?
We're trying to create audience. So much like David mentioned earlier, HBO Deaf Poetry was huge for our generation, right? Like, we are of that generation where I had found poetry through literature, and I was a reader young. But then whenever I was 11, 12 years old, and you see Shihan for the first time, and your whole life changes, you know what I'm saying? Like, what? As a hip hop head, like as a young punk rocker, like, music was already it. And then HBO gives you deaf poetry, and it was like, whoa, again, back to that lubrication. It was presented in a way that was easy and palatable. And the brilliance of what deaf poetry did, because like David said, there is a very narrow view of what a poet is.
Sure.
And the reality of poets is, it's like every community. It's diverse, it's broad, it's a full spectrum of people, and some of them it's varying, right? Different interests, different backgrounds, different ideas, different content. So what we're trying to do is just show the world that, and find a way to package that to the world. What deaf poetry did was it showed the world that poets are woke and activists and forward thinking. The poet will always tell the truth. That's the job of the poet, right? Like, that is why what you're striving to do is find a way to obscure the truth, to tell the truth, right? To make people find the truth. So that's a hindrance whenever you're talking about entertainment. But deaf poetry showed a way to encapsulate the community and the broad spectrum of the community, where it didn't just feel like you were being preached at. It felt like what poetry actually is, which is this huge thing, this culture of individuals. And sometimes it's fun, and sometimes it's funny, and sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's challenging. And like, if you go to a slam, if you go to DPL on a Tuesday night, you're going to hear the whole spectrum of art, hopefully, right? And we're trying to encourage that in the scene. We're trying to create a platform to show people like, yo, poets are activists, and we do speak the truth, but we also are funny, and we're also vulnerable, and we're also questioning, and we're also insecure, and we're also scared, and we're also powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're all these things, and it's in our work. So let's find a way to present the full spectrum of poetry to the world, like deaf poetry did. because
Awesome.
like Verses and Flow was great, but it was very tailored to one audience, right? And it felt that way. And if you were a part of the community, it felt great because you've been in that audience and you want that event, and like that is something that you love. But we're trying to show like kids something that they don't want to skip past. You feel me? Like we want to show kids something that they're instantly engaged with, that is using the same marketing tricks and tools and manipulations, honestly, that they're using to sell everything they want to sell. You know what I'm saying? Let's sell poetry.
Yo, right quick. We got some interesting comments in the chat. So Amelia saying, thank you for coming through. And yo, we got Alexander Black in the building. Yo, gang, we out here. All right, so Amelia says hip hop is bigger than the government facts. Everyone put some fax machine emojis for the facts that Amelia be dropping. Olas said, I prefer spoken word a bit more than traditional poetry. Yeah, it's experiential, right? And in a day and age where we have multimedia tools at our services and free streaming platforms, of course, like this direct engagement with you, Olas, is like that's gonna be popping for us, as opposed to reading a one-sided relationship on page. So it's a different experience. Alexander says, this summation of the importance of deaf poetry is so serious. It changed everything. Big ups. We also got, somebody asked a question earlier. I think Alexander Blacks, or somebody asked, like, who's your favorite modern day spoken word poet? Shall we go around? Shall we go around? All right, so I'm gonna start off. Like, yo, for me, it's always been it's been a toss up between Keto Fortune and Black Chakra, but I don't know. Black Chakra's been super busy, and he might have my #1 position for this year. He comes like his battle rap style of wordplay is like, I love battle rap, and that's a very good example of a literary competition that has exploded because they kept up with the times of internet and internet media and social media and producing content that is fit for those exact platforms. So Black Chakra, he just got followed by Loaded Lux the God. What? Crazy. Daniel Hees, who's your favorite poet, sir?
I mean, Black Chakra is like one of the most exciting poets right now, just in the current slam scene, right? He's definitely popping. Shout out to Keto, because I love Keto too. I really like Yao and his whole thing too, like the whole package of what Yao's doing. But I'm gonna give it to Nish Mojgani because he's not really slamming, but he's still the GOAT to me. And as long as he's active in the community, he's got it for me, bro. Like Nish Mojgani is huge for me, so he stays in that place in my heart.
He's one of the poets that Daniel put me on because he can't shut up about him, and he even has his words tattooed on his flesh, bro. Mad.
The poet has
right. So we have Mr. Daniel. We have Mr. Daniel in the building. Mr. Daniel, who's your favorite modern day poet?
Modern day poet. Wow. Well, in terms of more slam, in the realm of slam, I got to go with Aja Monet. She's been doing it for a long time, both a literary poet and a spoken word poet. So shout out to her. Yeah, and that actually kind of feeds into my next question, and I know I want to get you to share as well. As soon.
Mine. I get to go. Hold up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's pass it to you then.
All right. So I'm just doing this to piss Master D off. Saul Williams. Just kidding. Matt doesn't like Saul Williams. I'm actually gonna say Master D. He's come to my college a few times, been on Zoom. I love watching these YouTube performances. I don't know if he's in the slam scene anymore. I know he won one back in 2018 or something, but he just has, I don't know, I just love his energy, and I get his process because he's explained it to me so many times. He's just a beautiful poet, Okay, hit it, comrade.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot about shifting the paradigm in poetry and maybe even shattering it, if you will. I wanted to talk about kind of the hip hop influences on slam and spoken word, and just kind of how important that hip hop element is going to be for turning young kids on to poetry. So where do you see in your own work, in your own poetry? Because as we know, hip hop is an art form that derives out of Black culture. So kind of where do those influences kind of weave into the Pen Clique and what you guys do?
Daniel, I know you got a tongue load for him.
Well, it's also it's one thing that is important to Pen Click is that we are a community, right? And we are representing just our community. Most of the people that are on Pen Click are my homies, and we break bread and like their family. And it's clear what the representation is still. Poetry is a that's what happened, right? The Harlem Renaissance was brilliant because it was this time where Black intellectuals picked up poetry and revolutionized poetry and carried it forward. And it changed. They changed the whole game. That continued, right? And then in the 90s, you have the whole slam revolution. And it's always been carried forward by the Black community, but all of America's art comes from the Black community ultimately. That is where most of our artistic culture is actually being brewed and made, right? Like that's what it comes from. It gets appropriated, it gets used. The brilliance of poetry, because, and the apprehension, I think, of a lot of poets as well to do some of these media things, jump through these media hoops, act in these ways, is the preservation of the scene. Hip hop, growing up as like a backpacker and as a white boy, and I'm half white, but still, you know what I'm saying? I'm white passing as fuck. Nobody knows I'm Mexican unless I tell them that, right? But growing up in the backpack community, I got vetted all the time. You know what I'm saying? I got shit down at the airliner and the glass house and fucking, what are you here for? And why are you here, white boy? And all that shit. And it never made me feel anyway, because I'm also like from the barrio, you feel me? So it's like, oh, I know what this feels like. And fuck you, dog. I'm here for the same reason as you. So I understood then that the community was protecting itself, right? And it needed to do that. And it continued to do that because appropriation of this culture happens time and time again. And hip hop and poetry have managed to protect itself from this. As much as like the mainstream media has, hip hop is a part of the zeitgeist and a part of pop music now. There's still MC spitting bars. There's still kids out there who think Nas is the greatest of all time. There's still kids out there that think Big Daddy Kane is the greatest of all time. You feel me? And that is important because it is more than just an art form. It is a community. It is a culture. So that's what we strive to do at Pen Click, is just represent that community and that culture that has always existed, and to offer the platform to that community in a way that hasn't. And essentially kind of like, again, these are all tricks that marketing companies and people have used to steal the arts. So let's use them to feed ourselves. You feel me? Like, let's use them now, because for the democratization of media and content development and production, it's here. I tell people now when they're like, yo, I want to start a vlog channel. What do I need to buy for equipment? I say nothing. Your phone. Just get popping, bro. Like, it don't matter anymore. We're not in that age. So now it's nice because we now have the tools to just do what, like I described earlier, we just want to show this community to the world, to show them something. And that's the problem with America as well. If you're shut off from POCs and there hasn't been any exposure for you, that's where all the hatred and racism comes from. If you have one Black friend, you're not going to change your mind about or learn anything about the Black community. If you have 6 Black friends, that's enough to revolutionize your thinking. You feel me? And we're trying to create that in media, where it's like you could see one Black poet, or you could see the full spectrum of poetry and everybody that's doing all of these beautiful things in the same, packaged in the same way that your favorite hip hop thing is packaged. And now we could preserve the culture and get paid. You feel me? Like, we could do both of those things right now, as long as we're being mindful and organic with it. As long as it's coming from the community, it's healthy, and we strive, and we have a lot of conversations about that. But luckily, me and David, like, it's just on our spirit. This is just our community, so it's not hard to do. But the people with these kind of skills, you know what I'm saying, they're not vast in our community. So
yeah, that's the truth.
So also, real quick, I just want to add on to that is that Mr. Daniel referred to like how does hip hop play into the Pen Click vision? Like, we are 80s babies, hip hop heads, but at the same time, we acknowledge that we are kind of washed for what we're trying to do. And hip hop, like, it is pop culture right now, but at the same time, it's like younger and younger kids are getting into more different things like EDM and gaming and a lot, and all these different newer forms of arts and genres that we don't even have access to because we don't even know about it. So we're always like try to be careful that we don't pigeonhole ourselves to only what we like, because strength and diversity, the only way to have true diversity is through quantity. If you make like a poem that's about, you know, like the LGBTQ struggle and civil rights and domestic abuse, if you make a poem that's about all three of those things, like it might not hit as much as if you made one really specific poem about each of those things. So now you have three poems, right? In the same way, like we do acknowledge that, like, okay, I really love graffiti and you know, hip hop, graffiti, 5 elements, bro, hip hop, what's good? But at the same time, you know, there are people who write graffiti who only listen to EDM, who only listen to thrash metal. Like graffiti is bigger than hip hop these days. And we need to also acknowledge that because we're so familiar with the golden era of when, you know, like you could win slams with rhyme schemes, you know, back to back to back. Shout out Black Chakra who could still do that. But in the 2000s, when hip hop, I mean, MCs were spitting acapella raps and winning nationals, it's like that's not the era anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to constantly challenge ourselves and make sure that we're not only speaking to 30-something-year-old bros who are really into rap.
Yeah, totally. Damn, I had a great question and I lost it. This is what happens when you level up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I will say this. No, it's cool, man. My son is 11. He loves watching your show. And there's something about it, especially when
Oh, hey, big ups.
and it's my daughter too. She's 5 and she's like, Mom, what are you watching? And she'll watch a little longer than normal and then spin off. But I think you're hitting it. Whatever you're doing it right. So my nephew, TJ from Arizona, shout out TJ, he wanted to tell you that while poetry is taught in high school, the way it's taught tends to be boring and tedious, taken away from what poetry itself actually is. It makes it feel like work, not less enjoyable. So I guess is what it's saying is his teachers are boring. What do you think about that?
Well, that's unfortunate too, because poetry is one of those things that is best taught with passion, right? Like, if there's certain things you could teach algebra and not really care. You know what I'm saying? Like,
we were actually talking about that in the chat. We were talking about that in the chat. I want to say Anthony Garcia said poetry is taught in high school just the way it is taught tends to be boring and tedious, taking away from what poetry itself actually is. It makes it feel like work, not less enjoyable. So big ups Anthony Garcia in the chat gang.
I feel like early exposure is big too there. Like in schools, we're not showing kids enough early enough. You feel me? Like Shel Silverstein changed my life when I was a kid. Like, yo, this is crazy. Yeah, word. And that's how it starts, right? And we need to just create more of that. We also, like, because these teachers, again, passion. We need to have a poetry class. Or if you're going to teach poetry, teach it like you care or don't teach it. You feel me? Like, just expose people to it. We need exposure points. We need exciting new things.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I teach, but I would never teach something I didn't enjoy, first of all. And I'm not going to down my students because they love rhyming poetry. I don't really care for rhyming poetry, but they bring poets they like to share with all the rest of the learning community, you know? And it kills me to hear that students had composition teachers or literature teachers or whatever that didn't love what they did. And I'm like, damn, that's a way to kill the spirit, man, or any subject. Well, Daniel, you're a teacher. What do you think about that? Daniel,
I 100% agree with Mr. Garcia. That's how poetry was taught to me. If it weren't for guys like Shel Silverstein, if it weren't for Dr. Seuss, I would have never, or even just hip hop music in general, I would have never had any interest in poetry. And I was I was led to poetry by hip hop culture, hip hop music, and kind of these bits and pieces of poetry that I found intriguing, you know, throughout my years in schooling. So that's exactly how poetry was taught to me. You know, you get the Frost, you get the, you know, James Wickham Riley's, you get that type of stuff. You don't get
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you don't get a whole lot of you know, other stuff. You don't get, you get Langston, you get the traditional poets, but you don't get things that are more on the fringe of poetry and kind of shows of it as a complex art form. You don't get that in a K-12 school.
And you're also not getting the truth of those artists, right? Like you're not getting teach them about Maya Angelou's dirty work too. You feel me? Like show these kids that poetry isn't just the grass is green, the sky is blue. Show them that it's an expression about their sexuality, that it's an expression about their struggle, that it's an expression. It could be about whatever you want. I teach a poetry class at the shelter out here, and whenever somebody's like, it's boring, that's the challenge, right? Make it not boring then, dog. Like, what's all right? Then do something that's not boring with it. You feel me? Like, if you think this is boring, what is a not boring poem to you? And we're not challenging kids in that way. We're just saying, like, just do the work. And Maya Angelou is in this box, and Langston is in this box, and they keep it all, because that's the bigger question, right? Like, is it kept in that box, or is it taught this way because America still hasn't done the work?
Yeah, coming up with new lessons plan is hard, man. I get it. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like the way I describe the entire situation is this. Let's say you had an alien life form come to Earth, right? And then they're like, oh, what's good music? So they enter into Earth Internet, greatest musicians of all time, and they found Beethoven. And they listened to Beethoven because he was the #1 search for greatest musician of all time. And he goes, I'm not feeling this, so I guess I don't get music. It's the same thing with poetry and any other genre. That's why we say strength and diversity. You got to show kids that, like, all right, you don't like this kind of poetry? What about that type of poetry? You don't like that? What about that type of poetry? And then you can also make the links and connections for them. It's like, oh, you like those couple of bars that that JME spit on the freestyle Logan Sama grime set. Then that was actually like a double entendre, and we can break that down because those are poetic devices.
Awesome. No,
so making the connection to kids, making connections to kids. Let's so one thing I like to do, I'm sorry, I don't want to steamroll over everything, but one thing I like to do is that and this is also something that we could all share this bit of knowledge with is good stream behavior. Like being a good streamer also means to constantly talk to the chat and being engaging. And that's something that I learned as a Twitch viewer, because Twitch is only live streaming, right? So by seeing how the chat behaves and seeing how the streamers behave to optimize what a good live stream is, that's what we're learning from, and that's what we're trying to apply to our own poetry content. So that being said, let's look at the chat real quick. We got Edmund Zambrano, Poen Pac. Hey, that should be a damn shirt. Facts. Big ups, Edmund. Yo, let's get some air horns for that guy. And then, yo, we got a lot of fire emojis. We got Amelia sang with the fire emojis. Elizabeth Mariano, invite their imagination. Play. Big facts. Yo, that was, we need to drop a bomb for that one, because that was mind shattering right there. That should be on a t-shirt. Big ups, Elizabeth Mariano. Ola says, I admit I'm not great at rhyming. I also feel it limits me to what I want to say. So they're having a little debate in the chat about rhyming poetry. But at the same time, it's whatever you like, baby. You know what I'm saying? Get in where you fit in, baby.
That's right. And don't you ever tell anybody I misspelled all that shit. No, seriously, I this is the first time people have come on my stream. I'm like, oh my God, people are actually chatting and asking questions. That's awesome. You guys brought it. Thank you for that. No, I think, see, this is what I notice about my students, because I teach at a community college and they're from underrepresented communities. A lot of them do slam. They're woke and they need something to express themselves. And not that poetry has to be it, but like I taught a book last semester called Overthrowing Capitalism. And I know the title sounds really red, but it's really good about gender, sexuality issues, the environment. They loved it. They ate it up. It was the first time they encountered poetry of that depth that spoke to what they care about. So, I mean, I think it's our time, brothers. I really do. I think 2021, man, let's bring it, like you say, and really just fucking bring as many dishes to the table as we can for people to feast on. Like, you guys just inspired me. I had this moment, you should do the bomb sound. I'm going to bring Spanish speakers on my fucking show. Why not?
Yeah.
I'm bilingual, bro. Why not?
Yeah, that's something we can't do.
You all need help. I'll come over. No, seriously, because look, the thing that's going on in slam in Mexico is beautiful. Totally different from what they do here. I would love to have that on my show. Love it. It's mellow and calm and naturey. Not that up and down kind of thing that goes on here in the U.S. a lot of times, but it's beautiful. By the way,
that's good.
No, Daniel, when you read that poem on that celebration, first of all, I loved it because it was so natural and it wasn't forced. I loved it. I hate when people are like, and then my lot. I don't know, just talk to us. Don't they taught you in high school or whatever. But I loved you. I loved it. I'm assuming the part of that is the acting that has helped you develop your voice.
It's a lot of things. A lot of it is hip hop though. I've been like, you know what I'm saying? Rock and roll and hip hop and punk rock in the backpack community, and all the crazy punk rock art dumb shit I did my whole life, and all the bad rhymes I spit my whole life. And that's what I tell people now, like, yo, you got to start because you're going to be trash for a long time, bro. Like, that's how it goes. It takes a really long time to cultivate and develop. But what you're hearing is like a mixture of things, right? It's spending a week with an album in high school because, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to know how to say every single word that Q-Tip said, exactly how Q-Tip said it. You feel me? Mm-hmm. And now as an adult, that has led me to a place where I just organically I speak how I'm going to speak, you know what I'm saying? And I've done the work to where I'm confident. And again, we're all conduits to something, right? So if you're honest, it'll come out and it'll sound out.
Look, you're confident, but you're not arrogant. I hate arrogant poets. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah, I feel you.
I can't handle that shit. But you, Kuya, you come off as like you're the uncle, like your name says. You're the cool uncle. You're cool too, but Kuya David's pretty damn cool. You know what I'm saying? So
thank you kindly. Thank you.
No, I think that's one of the things. Do you come off as real? Just real. I don't know, Daniel. Don't you think so? Like the personas. You know what I'm saying? Like.
Absolutely. And that's something that we were talking about in terms of shifting the paradigm, being personable and making the connection. And as David referred to, not just a poem from one perspective on a page, but like a face-to-face interaction, almost like a dialogue, you know, really turning poetry into something that people never imagined that it could be. And that's what you guys are doing. I can see that with Pen Clique.
And we love this shit on the real. We love
you.
this. Kuya loves this. Kuya knows more about slam poetry and the history of modern slam and like little things about like nuances. And this is
don't set me up like that, bro. Don't set me they're gonna come for me in the comments like, oh,
no,
do you know about this 1987 slam? It's like, oh, sir, I'm good on that. I don't want the smoke, bro. It's like I'm a casual fan. I'll say that. I'm a casual fan.
But we love this shit. Like, that's why we're here. You know what I'm saying? We're not doing this because we're making money and like we're fed. You know what I'm saying? Pen Clique is a time and money drain for us. And we're doing that because nobody else is willing to invest that into this community. And I believe in my homies and I believe in this community to where it's like, it's worth it. Y'all are worth this level of a platform. You deserve your work to be on this platform, and not everybody on the real. Like, we're trying to also show people new pinnacles and then shatter that, and then let's go to a new level. And then once we're there, like, let's shatter that and let's go to a new level until I could tell 14-year-old kid that comes to me, yo, I want to be a poet as an adult. I want to be able to be like, yeah, bro, you could go be a poet and make 150K a year. But that's not an option. So let's build that. Let's find a way to do that.
Your business model, not to shout out about me, reminds me of my independent press, where I give away a lot of shit. I make no money, but the beauty about it, and Daniel will tell you, is that I'm putting out there the voices of emerging writers, people you wouldn't necessarily see in Random House or whatever, City Lights. So I'm real proud of that. And yeah, it takes money to produce books. We just produced a beautiful volume that's going to Doctors Without Borders. It was #1 on Amazon for a while. And I'm not like a pro Amazon person, but fuck it, man. If that's what it takes to get exposure and get these poetic and fiction writers and artists out there, why not? But I love it. I love the project. 100% supporter of Pen Clique. I think it's amazing. So this is actually a great segue. I've kept you over a little bit. I really love and appreciate you guys. But what can we expect from Pen Clique in 2021? Maybe to level up from last year or this year?
You can always expect the most poppin' poetry content in the known galaxy, no matter what.
Facts.
But the big thing with and to harken back before I pass it to David, the big thing with Pen Clique that I want everybody to keep in mind is that this is an experiment. We are constantly trying new things. What we're doing is we're taking all of our media knowledge and marketing knowledge and what we see happening outside of poetry in other communities and in other content communities, and taking those models and trying them with poetry and seeing if it pops or not. You know what I'm saying? So whatever we do, it'll be popping. But keep in mind that we are constantly on flux. We are very fluid. We are always trying new things. We are always in the lab.
We've definitely had to learn the hard way because there's not a lot of platforms that do what we do. if any, but at the same time, like we're always criticizing our own work and looking back at the numbers. Like, for example, earlier this year, we noticed how a lot of poetry platforms did Instagram lives and they did like their open mics, and it's like, this is okay. But like the audio quality was kind of whatever. The video quality was super trash, and then like comments would always like cover up the person who's on the bottom. So we looked at that and was like, okay, how do we make Instagram streaming good? And then we figured out like behaviors. Like I was talking about how Twitch people on Twitch know how to behave on a live stream that makes it the most fun. We're trying to figure out like, all right, so we know people hate banter. Like, oh, we got a new poet. What's your name? Oh yeah, that's cool. Where you from? And talk 10 minutes about your day before you get into your 2-minute piece. Terrible, trash. Yo, let's give a gunshot to that. Don't like that. But we took at what we can do in our behaviors in scripting, as well as what we can do with design. Like, how do we design around those frames? What software can we use to give people better audio and video quality? And we thought we had a hit. So what we ended up doing was like doing these pre-recorded performances, but then having a live MC to speak directly to the chat, because that's what happens on Twitch. But at the same time, this is poetry, right? And this is part of the experimentation process where like in the poetry space, people expect to have everything live, like everything is really there, really live, in the building, and to have a pre-recorded poetry performance, it's like, well, I might as well just watch a bunch of button videos. So now we're rethinking, like, all right, how do we turn our series, what was called Off Page, how do we turn Off Page into a live open mic? And then again, going back into the community, how are people doing open mic kind of content on Instagram in the poetry community, and how are they doing it, in sports, in music, in movies, like looking at Netflix watch party, looking at watch alongs, looking at let's plays on Twitch and YouTube, and really trying to figure out like where are the best behaviors and what are ways we can get people in to still give them good audio and video quality. So for next year, we're really trying to zero in on a good, fun, engaging open mic, as well as reviving our podcast, because we did not think that the pandemic and lockdown would be this long. So we were like, oh yeah, we had all these, like we had 3 or 4 episodes in the can, and we thought we would like, oh yeah, we'll probably be dropping them, by October, because we'll probably get out by then and start doing more podcast episodes. But the truth is that like, all right, this isn't happening, so let's figure out like how to do this both digitally and also start rolling out our content that we recorded earlier last year. Big ups Elizabeth, who says button poetry, lots of ads on Facebook. We got Alexander Black saying it's a poetry platform. They are Olas. Oh yo, we gotta give Alexander Black some shots right there. Yo, talking spicy on behalf of the Clique. Yo, the Clique is strong, buddy. Olas said they have a vast selection of performative poetry. Facts. Many of which are students. Yeah, so like how button poetry started was that it was a slam team, and they were on tour, and they decided to start recording their own team's performances to upload. And then what they realized is that as they would upload other people's stuff, they would look forward to like seeing themselves appear on Button's platform. This was way back when, and since then, Button just saw what works for them, and they doubled down on it, and that's how Button poetry as of today. So that being said, in the same level, Pen Clique, we're still experimenting, seeing what sticks, seeing what doesn't, what needs to be modified, and 2021, hopefully, you're gonna see something special.
Well, hermanos, I wish you all the best. May you get to 10,000 followers. You merit that and more, and I am so grateful and honored. Daniel, I don't know if you want to give our brothers a few words.
No, absolutely. Salute to y'all, man. Salute to the Pen Clique, to David, to Daniel. Thanks for having. We glad to have you here, man. Appreciate you guys sharing your knowledge, man.
Well, yeah.
Hope it's a big 2021 for y'all.
Maybe we laugh in our enemies' faces.
Bless.
No, seriously, I am most. I know, right? Thank you, brothers. I know you're busy, and this has been amazing. I'm so grateful to you. I couldn't have had a better show, and I think you guys did an amazing job of like answering questions, and just God, thank you. I don't know what else to say. Hope to see you guys sometime soon. Maybe another celebration of 1,000. So Have a blessed day, brothers. Thank you. You want to close out for us? You're the master, Kuya.
So, yeah. I just asked the chat if anybody has any last minute questions, but it might be a little too late for that. So, that being said, hey, thank you everyone for tuning in into Radical Books and Poetry's YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe for the most poppin' political poetry content on YouTube. Follow her on Twitter because she's super active there as well, which I'm not, but whatever. So if Twitter is your language, then Dr. Estrada, she knows what to do and she got you. That being said, please follow us on Instagram at PenClique, PenClique, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitch. We're also out there as well, trying to figure that out. Subscribe to our YouTube for the most poppin' poetry content out of the PenClique minds and universe in the digital ether. Yo, we out here. Daniel Hees, why don't you let them know something?
Hey, love y'all. Be sure to go check out everything we do and hit our Discord too, hit our community. We love y'all. The online community, poetry community, strong. We appreciate y'all for having us because again, this is about like a team thing. We're trying to also teach everybody how to do all these things, you know what I'm saying? Like so that again, 2021, let's make it better than 2020 and like 2022 and to infinity and beyond. Eventually, you know what I'm saying? We'll all eat. We'll all be able to stop working and eat. But right now, it's a time to hustle and work. So check out everything we're doing now. Hit our Discord, hit us up, follow, share, like, survive, all that. Write a poem, y'all. Most importantly, write a poem.
Hey, is that Discord PenClique?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the Discord is was it like discord.penclick.net? All you have to do is type that in, and then you'll get the invitation into our server. So we have Anime Watch Wednesdays. We're doing Adobe Premiere workshops. Right now we're watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Season 1 in American dub. It is the most ridiculous thing. It's amazing. And we're also doing Adobe Premiere workshops. So we're trying to teach people how to edit videos on our channel. And once that's done, hopefully we'll get into design and Photoshop tutorials because we're trying to empower our creative community and our Discord clique specifically so that everybody can make more amazing, cutting edge, dope poetry content.
Yeah, oh my God, thank you. That's super awesome. And all right, thank you, brothers. Have an amazing day. Love you to the max. Totally. See you soon.
God
bless.
And thank people who are chatting, man. You guys are the best. Check out. Thank you, Olas, Emilia. Thank you, all my friends.